FM 959.
Good afternoon. Now, this WOL traffic update on this Tuesday before Thanksgiving. If you're heading out to the Beltway now, you will find it very slow on the inner loop between New Hampshire Avenue and Ritchie Marlborough Road without much of a break. The outer loop is slow from Pennsylvania Avenue, Route 4, all the way up to Route 50, and then from New Hampshire Avenue to University Boulevard outer loop. Also slows Georgia Avenue to Connecticut Avenue. As you head on to DC 295 northbound, and delays from the 11th Street Bridge up to East Capitol Street southbound on 295. Very heavy and slow now. From Eastern Avenue down to East Capitol Street, Kenilworth Avenue southbound slows from Route 50 to Eastern Avenue at the District Line. Now your WOL weather forecast for today: rain, a high near 55, 53 overnight. The rain ends, and then for tomorrow, partly cloudy and high near 60. Right now, DC, it is raining and 45 degrees. Steve Hirschhorn for News Talk 1450 AM WOL, where information is power.
All right. Welcome back to Igniting Change with Barbara Arnwine. I'm your co-host, Attorney Daryl Jones, the board chair of the Transformative Justice Coalition. And we're so excited that you've decided to spend your Tuesday afternoon here on iconic radio station, listening WOL, listening to Igniting Change Radio. Folks, you know, if you have missed any part of this show, at the end, you need to hit stop, rewind, go back and listen, because we are here today talking to Attorney Ryan Thompson, who is representing several plaintiffs in a case in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, in something that's called the Brave Cave, where they were taking primarily, what I can tell, African Americans there, and for no reason, no lawful reason, torturing them, beating them. And we've been in this conversation. You need to be certain to listen to each and every word that is going on here, because this is one of the things that we've got to be able to address as well as to expose that are happening across this country. So, Mr. Thompson, thank you for that layout. We also have with us Judge Alexander Williams. You know, Judge Williams, you know, listening to what Attorney Thompson has laid out and what was happening in Baton Rouge, and I know that there's some more that he's going to tell us that's going on there as well. But, you know, I know from your background, from being on the federal bench, from being a prosecutor in Prince George's County, Maryland, which was not, you know, unknown for having incidents regarding rough policing, shall we say. When you're hearing what Attorney Thompson has laid out, you know, what response do you have? What is the feeling that you would like the listeners to hear about your impressions of what he's laid out?
Thank you, Attorney Jones and Barbara Arnwine. Thank you so much for having me. And I want to thank, again, Attorney Thompson for sharing and giving us this information. And my initial reaction, obviously, is appalling. It's so scandalous and lawless and corrupt. And let me say this. I have been in criminal justice a long time. As a defense attorney, elected prosecutor, I served 20 years on the federal bench. I had a lot of 1983 actions for excessive force, but never have I heard such thing as a torture warehouse. And it's just unbelievable. It's just so appalling. And I am just ashamed that law enforcement and police officers would engage in such unlawful activity. And I'm always concerned whenever there's a task force of police officers to address some type of crime. This anti-street crime unit, this violence elimination initiative is almost, in fact, it's worse than the gun task force that I'm familiar with in Baltimore City, where police officers are out of control, saying that the city belonged to them, and they were all convicted and sent to prison serving time now. So this is the worst I've ever heard, and it's just appalling.
Wow. And, you know, Attorney Thompson, I know that there's a recent case that you've just filed as well against Baton Rouge regarding Jason Jackson. Could you share with our listeners what that's all about? Attorney Thompson?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was on mute. If I could,
Okay.
after Jeremy's case was filed, your listeners should be aware if they missed the previous show with Attorney Hawkins, there was a grandmother that was taken to this place who we also represent, Ms. Turnell Brown, and she was also a victim of an illegal strip search, where she was also the victim of a visual body cavity search as well, where she was made to open up her private parts. Because there may be young listeners on here, I won't go into detail, but she was taken there, and the allegation was by these same officers who arrested Jeremy that she was in unlawful possession of a firearm with controlled dangerous substances. That is untrue. She has medication that she was prescribed. She offered to show the officers at the scene at least 4 times her prescription. Instead, they told her, we'll let the judge deal with it, and then they took her to the Brave Cave and did what they did to Jeremy as well. The new case that we have with Mr. Jackson, and what myself and Attorney Jessica Hawkins has tried to do, and the judge can speak to this, we tried to be very careful in what we put before the court because we don't want to set precedent. And so we try to be very careful in what we choose, and we've chosen these cases to show that these officers don't discriminate in terms of the victims that they target. We have Jeremy Lee, who's a young African-American male. We have Turnell Brown, who's a grandmother, a black woman. And now we have Mr. Jackson. Back in May, Mr. Jackson was cutting his grandmother's lawn, and when he decided to leave to go home, he took the freeway home, what some would call a highway. He was stopped on this highway by 2 different officers who are also a part of the street crimes unit, and he was made to exit his vehicle on the side of the highway. They then shackled him at his legs and and handcuffed him at his wrist, placed him in the vehicle, and searched his vehicle. Nothing was found in the vehicle, no contraband, no drugs, no nothing, no firearms. The officer stated that he was making questionable movements inside of the vehicle. At that point in time, an officer stayed with his truck on the side of the highway, and he was then transported to the Brave Cave. While still being bound at his hands and his feet, the officer walked him into the Brave Cave and said, "Don't you dare run because that canine will tear you up." Mr. Jackson told him, "How can I run when I'm shackled at my legs?" At that point in time, again, I've been using the word unconscionable. What transpired was unconscionable. He then slowly made Mr. Jackson take his shirt off, take his belt off, then told him to turn around, bend over, and bust open his you-know-what. My client was so distraught that he then went into tears. Nothing was found on my client. The officer then made him get dressed, patted him on the back and said, "I'm sorry," and laughed. Took him back to his car, released him without any type of summons, arrest, or anything associated with any type of indictment or anything like that. When I was contacted by Mr. Jackson, I couldn't believe what I heard. So we filed a public records request to receive the body-worn camera. The response of the city, instead of, in our view, taking ownership, was that to then say, we can't provide you these items because Mr. Jackson is still this is still an open criminal investigation. We believe that to be a scapegoat, and we believe that if there is an open criminal investigation, which, again, we don't believe there is one, we believe that they can release to the attorneys, if not the public, the specific portions of the body-worn camera that is related to the stop, the then transport to the Brave Cave, and whatever transpired, and the return of Mr. Jackson. They have not done that to this point, which is why we then filed federal suit.
Wow.
Wow.
Wow. And that is so serious. I mean, let's talk about the facts here, folks. You have a police department. This is the same police department, by the way, that killed Alton Sterling back in 2016, correct? And there was a Justice Department, quote, investigation